up into second place in this race.
Do you get chance to relax in Formula One? I mean, it's...
In a way, yes. You know, he's...
Lights flash. Cameras capture every twitch. Two men sit at the podium.
The records that we've broken, and
barely disguising their disdain behind forced smiles. This isn't a boxing weigh-in. It's a Formula One press conference, and Mercedes' Toto Wolff and Red Bull's Christian Horner are about to lock horns. What happens when two powerhouse team bosses turn a Formula One title fight into a personal grudge match? Mercedes' Toto Wolff and Red Bull's Christian Horner did exactly that, transforming professional rivalry into a fiery feud that gripped the racing world. They would soon trade jaw-dropping insults, from calling each other a windbag to a pantomime dame, and their press conference spats went viral. Each dig, each jibe only amplified the tension as their teams battled wheel-to-wheel for supremacy. Most F1 rivalries play out between drivers, but Wolff and Horner proved that team bosses can clash just as spectacularly, and with a lot more than pride on the line. This is the inside story of how a clash of egos in 2021 to 2022 ignited a love-hate dynamic between two of Formula One's most powerful figures, and just how far each was willing to go when team bosses go to war. Rivalry ignites. The 2021 season lit the spark for an unprecedented rivalry between two top teams and their bosses. Red Bull finally had a car to challenge Mercedes' dominance, meaning Christian Horner and Toto Wolff were in a true head-to-head showdown for the first time. Horner, Formula One's longest-serving team principal since 2005, and Wolff, who took charge of Mercedes in 2013, had coexisted without major friction during Mercedes' years of supremacy. The two were a study in contrasts. Horner, an ex-racer turned team boss, was outspoken and cheeky, known for his sly digs and media savvy. Wolff, a former investor, was more reserved and analytical, at least until provoked. But now, with Red Bull's Max Verstappen and Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton dueling on track, the competitive tension soon seeped into the relationship between the team principals. At the season opener in Bahrain, Hamilton and Verstappen finished 1-2 in a nail-biting duel, a sign of the evenly matched fight to come. By spring, it was clear Red Bull had the pace to threaten Mercedes' crown. Horner and Wolff, who previously enjoyed a fairly cordial relationship, suddenly found themselves in opposite corners of a heavyweight fight. It didn't take long for the first war of words to erupt. By early summer, Mercedes and Red Bull were accusing each other of bending the rules, literally. Wolff hinted Red Bull's rear wing was too flexible, while Horner shot back that Mercedes' front wing was suspect. In Baku, Horner publicly warned, "If I was Toto with the front wing he's got on his car, I'd keep my mouth shut." Wolff didn't mince words in response. He quipped, "Christian is a bit of a windbag who wants to be on camera." Horner felt Mercedes were persistently lobbying the FIA to clip Red Bull's wings. "An awful lot of pointed activity in our direction," he remarked, saying it was no surprise that a rival would try to slow the car down via politics. These sharp exchanges, blasted across media headlines, made one thing clear: the battle off-track had begun in earnest. What started as subtle barbs over car design quickly escalated into a personal duel between the bosses. And as the season's stakes grew higher, the animosity was only getting started. Collisions fuel the feud. As the season progressed, flashpoints on the track poured gasoline on the fire between Horner and Wolff. The most notorious incident came at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. On the opening lap, title rivals Hamilton and Verstappen collided at high speed. Verstappen's Red Bull slammed into the barriers with an impact measured at over 50 gigabytes. The Dutchman was taken to the hospital for precautionary checks, while Hamilton went on to win the race despite a penalty. The aftermath ignited an inferno of accusations. Horner was livid, slamming Hamilton's driving as dirty driving and saying the 7-time champion had put Max's life in danger. He felt Hamilton's 10-second penalty was nowhere near enough punishment for the damage and risk caused. To Horner's mind, Hamilton's post-race celebration, waving a Union Jack while Verstappen was being evaluated at the medical center, only added fuel to the fire. Hamilton was defiant, insisting he saw no need to apologize, and Wolff leapt to his driver's defense. He argued Horner's fierce condemnation was below the belt. The Silverstone clash became a worldwide flashpoint. Fans and pundits fiercely debated who was at fault, and Wolff and Horner's fiery comments only amplified the polarization. What had been simmering tension between the team bosses now burst into open hostility. Horner and Wolff were no longer just quibbling about car parts. Now it was deeply personal, centered on matters of driver safety and respect. War of words and insults. By the closing stages of 2021, the rivalry between Wolff and Horner had degenerated into a bare-knuckle exchange of insults. Neither man hid his contempt for the other. Their confrontations now featured flashes of anger and mutual dislike beyond the usual political banter. In interviews and press conferences, they lobbed personal jabs that would have been unthinkable in earlier years. At one point, Horner derided Wolff as a control freak, which prompted Wolff to sneer that Horner was just a windbag who always wants to be on camera. Far from being offended, Horner seemed to revel in getting under his rival's skin. "The more Toto gets wound up, the more fun it becomes," he quipped, to Wolff's evident irritation. It was a toxic back and forth with no signs of slowing down. As Wolff put it during one tense exchange, "What started as Olympic boxing went to pro boxing and is now MMA. Sorry, gloves are off." Reporters knew a good spectacle when they saw one. Press conferences pairing the two often turned into sparring matches, with journalists' questions lighting the fuse. Their press conference appearances turned into must-watch drama for F1 fans, punctuated by snide remarks and icy stares. As the title fight neared its climax, their verbal barbs only sharpened. Horner frankly admitted there is no relationship between him and Wolff. He even joked, "I don't need to kiss his age or anything like that," when asked about any pretense of friendship. Wolff, for his part, wasn't exactly extending olive branches either. In fact, Wolff even joked that arguing with Horner was like watching someone drive the wrong way down a highway, yet convinced he was the only one going in the right direction, an insult that underlined how absurd each viewed the other's stance. Their press clashes had become so heated that millions of viewers around the world were tuning in to watch the drama. In one headline-grabbing episode, Wolff labeled Horner a windbag, and Horner fired back by calling Wolff a pantomime dame, likening the Mercedes boss to an over-the-top theater character. The media had a field day with every new quote, and millions of viewers ate it up. The Netflix Drive to Survive documentary series even captured their rivalry for a global audience. In the social media era, their feud took on a life of its own. Every quip and quarrel went viral on Twitter and YouTube, turning Wolff and Horner into mainstream talking points beyond the F1 bubble. Suddenly, team principals were as big a storyline as the drivers in this championship. Verbal jousting between Mercedes and Red Bull's figureheads had turned deeply personal. And with the world watching, Wolff and Horner prepared to take their duel into the final race of the season, neither willing to give an inch on or off the track. The final showdown. Arriving at the winner-take-all Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the pressure on Wolff and Horner was immense. Months of sniping and scandals had led to this moment. One race to decide the championship. In a surprising show of sportsmanship, Wolff extended a handshake to Horner before the weekend began. "Good luck. May the best man and the best team win," Wolff told his counterpart on Friday, and Horner offered a tight smile as cameras captured the moment. It was a brief glimpse of cordiality, the calm before one of the most controversial storms in F1 history. What followed on Sunday in Abu Dhabi will be debated for years. For most of the race, Hamilton led comfortably, on course for the title, until a late crash triggered a safety car. Horner implored officials not to end the race under caution, eager for one last chance for Verstappen. Wolff, sensing danger, was anxious to the point of pleading, "No, Michael, no! This isn't right," over the radio, urging the race director to stick to the usual procedures. In the end, race control made a highly contentious call. They let the race restart with one final lap of green flag racing. Verstappen, on fresh tires, overtook Hamilton in a daring last lap pass to seize the championship. Pandemonium ensued. Wolff exploded in anger, banging his headset and yelling in disbelief at race control. Horner, ecstatic with his driver's triumph, celebrated, but the circumstances meant the victory was immediately steeped in controversy. Aftermath, an uneasy truce. The dust settled over the winter, and in the cold light of a new year, both principals seemed to realize how extreme their battle had become. In public, Wolff and Horner struck a calmer tone. When they eventually appeared together in early 2022, there was an air of tentative respect. Wolff candidly admitted that the feud had gotten fierce at times and brutal, with so much at stake, and that "we need to move on. We've closed the chapter and moved on." Horner agreed that it was time to draw a line under the animosity. "Maybe we share differences of opinion over Abu Dhabi, but that's all done and dusted. All focus is now on 2022, he said, reinstating a baseline of mutual respect. The two even managed a courteous handshake when the new season began, signaling a ceasefire after their season-long war of words. New battles in 2022. If anyone thought a quieter 2022 on track would end the Wolff-Horner hostilities, they were mistaken. New battles simply took a different form. Midway through 2022, a fierce debate over car porpoising, the violent bouncing of cars at high speed, brought the two bosses into conflict yet again. Mercedes pushed for rule changes to address the issue, which Red Bull strongly opposed. At a heated team principals meeting in Montreal, Wolff lost his temper in front of his rivals. He lambasted other team bosses for manipulations in the background and blasted some of their attitudes as pitiful and disingenuous, accusing them of playing political games while he stressed the legitimate safety concerns. Horner, smelling blood, countered that Wolff was putting on an element of theater in that meeting for effect, essentially accusing Toto of play acting to influence the FIA. In a barbed joke, Horner even quipped that with Lewis Hamilton involved in a new Hollywood F1 movie project, maybe Wolff was just auditioning for a role. The meeting reportedly descended into shouting, with Wolff and Horner exchanging pointed words while others watched. Once again, headlines around the world echoed with the two principals bickering. No sooner had that dust-up subsided than another controversy arrived, one even more incendiary. In late 2022, whispers emerged that Red Bull had breached Formula One's new budget cap, the $145 million spending limit introduced for 2021. The paddock was rife with speculation, and Wolff didn't hesitate to fan the flames. He told reporters it was an open secret that a rival team had massively overspent the cap, a thinly veiled swipe at Red Bull. Horner was outraged at the implication. He dismissed the accusations as idle gossip and rumor, and insisted Red Bull's accounting was well within the rules. In public, Horner and Wolff traded pointed comments once again. Wolff pressed the FIA to come down hard on any budget-busting team, while Horner decried what he saw as a smear on his team's reputation, at one stage even threatening legal action if the rumors proved false. It was the 2021 animosity reborn in a new arena, with words like cheating hanging in the air and both sides adamant they were in the right. The Toto Wolff vs. Christian Horner feud of 2021 to 2022 will be remembered as one of Formula One's great off-track dramas. In a sport where rivalries usually play out between drivers, Wolff and Horner's clash showed that team principals can generate fireworks of their own. It was a rivalry fueled by respect and resentment in almost equal measure, at times professional, often deeply personal. Both men ultimately want the same thing: to lead their teams to victory, and in the turbo hybrid era, it was usually one or the other on top. Perhaps that inevitability made their clash unavoidable. As Horner himself put it, their relationship is a love-hate relationship. "Toto loves to hate me," he quipped. They may not like each other, but they do share a begrudging respect as elite competitors who have each reached the pinnacle of success. Two empires, two leaders. One war that rewrote 2021 to 2022. If this kept your pulse up, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Tell me below, whose playbook worked better? Wolff's cold strategy or Horner's public pressure?